morning, Formula One fans. This is your Formula One News Hour. I'm Jonathan Steele, your host, and good morning. And today we are back to live racing, albeit a short race. We have a new qualifying, not new qualifying, but they're taking the sprint drive as the qualifying session for this morning's qualifying for pole position for tomorrow's race. So, but first, let's go ahead and thank our sponsors, Denology, Give, Send, Go, Cloud Hub, and Moms for Liberty. So this portion of the Formula One News Hour is brought to you by Give, Send, Go. Folks, you can't choose what happens to you in life, but you can certainly choose how to raise some funds should you need it to get well or to help a friend or even just to start a business. So please give, Send, Go a chance of earning your business and helping out your friends. That's givesendgo.com. Okay, so up to now, the cars are out on their warm-up lap, and they at the moment are from yesterday's qualifying paces. As it turns out, at one time, Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc were in a dead heat, but at the end of the day, Charles Leclerc edged out Max Verstappen by 1/1000th of a second, which is pretty close. In fact, I think that's probably the closest it's been. But that means that Max Verstappen has still not got pole position here at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. He is 0 for about 5 or 6. Charles Leclerc, on the other hand, has pole position. And we're talking about pole position, of course, for the sprint car race this morning. So anyway, if you are ready, the drivers are about ready, and we're going to get going here in just a few moments. So as they warm up, it should be noted that the drivers at Mercedes seem to be pretty happy with the way things are going, with the exception, of course, of George Russell. George Russell failed to get out of the bottom 15 yesterday. He qualified 11 for this sprint race this morning to determine the pole. It looks like it's a beautiful sunny day in Azerbaijan. If you ever get a chance to go there, it's a great place to go. It's like stepping back in history and yet being right in the modern world. They've got the old city in Azerbaijan. They've also got the new city that of course they've been building here over the last 100 years. Very interesting fact about Azerbaijan: it is the home of the world's first oil refinery. So that's not a fact that not many people know. That everybody's always associated the United States with being the brains behind the first oil refinery. In fact, they may have been the brains, but they built it in Azerbaijan. And we are getting ready to start, and the lights are on, and the lights are at 4, 5, and out. And they are off, and Max Verstappen is pulling in right behind Leclerc as they come up to the first corner. And it's going to be Leclerc and Verstappen in that order. And it looks like Carlos Perez has pulled alongside Lewis Hamilton. And it looks like who is going to win this race to the next corner here? Certainly Leclerc and Verstappen are way out front. And it is Hamilton that wins the battle right there and nudges out. Oh, wait a minute. So Carlos Sainz has come up from the 5th position now and is challenging and is just past Hamilton. This is really crazy stuff going on here the first time. But Leclerc is putting a nice little gap between himself and second place Verstappen. So it is a beautiful day in Azerbaijan. You can see the sun. It's 5:30 in the afternoon in Azerbaijan. It is 8:30 in the morning here in St. Louis, where we're doing the podcast from this morning. As we had a nephew getting married today, and we will attend that wedding. And so tomorrow we'll also be bringing the race to you live from St. Louis in Missouri. For all of you folks who are not familiar with where St. Louis is, And we have a wheel going down the track all by itself. That means a car is minus a wheel. And in fact, here we see the car now. And who is it? It is a AlphaTauri, so that can only be Pierre Gasly or who? Let's see, Pierre Gasly or Nicky Tsunoda. Nicky Tsunoda, and it looks like it is Tsunoda's wheel that has decided to leave its car. And so, of course, that brings out the yellow flag. And as the yellow flag comes out, we have Leclerc, Perez. Oh, and that's something very interesting that I haven't noticed there. George Russell has come up from number 11th all the way to number 3. Carlos Sainz is number 4. Hamilton is number 5. And following him is Alonso. And bringing up the bottom of the pack is Nick de Vries. Nick de Vries yesterday during the time tests actually came in number 8. So that was very good for that young rookie driver driving for McLaren. And looking at the pieces of car all over the track here, I would say Yuki Tsunoda hit the wall. So we're going to see a replay here in just a second as it comes up. And yes, he did. He kissed the wall coming out of the turn. So he is out of the time trial of the speed trial here. But that doesn't mean to say he's out of the race. He will just start last tomorrow on the grid. And interesting fact, he didn't lose his wheel. He just lost the tire off his wheel. So that's why we just have a tire going down the track. And I thought it was the entire wheel, but no, it is just the tire. So we are on a virtual safety car, and maybe Tsunoda is not going to be out of this at all. He's coming in to get himself another set of wheels and tires. It's kind of interesting as he pulls up. He's got his left rear wheel on the ground and his right front wheel on the ground, and his right rear scraping the ground, and his left front is not even touching the ground. So quite an interesting thing. But they are going to change his nose cone. And so they just unclip that, clip a new one on, and they put him in a new set of tires on. And assuming he hasn't done any damage to the steering mechanisms, he's going to be right back out there on the track. So he doesn't stand a chance, of course, of catching up. So he will still start in the last position tomorrow morning. Oh, and on the replay here, we have just seen maybe why we've just seen why maybe on the replay we've just seen why maybe the George Russell ended up where he was, and that is because going through the turns he kissed wheels with Sergio Perez, which caused a backup of Perez and all the other cars behind him. But still, no foul there. They ended up going on quite nicely. And so we are in the holding pattern here. Under the virtual safety car, we don't actually have a safety car on the track. The drivers just have to reduce to 40% of their normal speed and hold position. So they can't gain any time on the cars in front of them. They have to literally, so if as an example, Leclerc is 2 seconds ahead, then Max Verstappen has to stay 2 seconds behind him during the virtual car. So it should be coming to an end here pretty soon, but we'll take a commercial break here and thank our friends at Thenology for their sponsorship. Thenology is a little boutique data center in Austin, Texas, performing both private and public cloud, along with co-location and managed services. So if you need some good storage, you need a private cloud, you need co-location, then you need to go to Thenology. That is thenology.com. And are they bringing out there? I thought they were about to take off the virtual safety car, and they are in fact bringing on the safety car. So something there on the barriers must have caused them. Something in the barriers must have caused them to pull out the safety cars so they could repair the damage to the safety car. But the safety car is going out. So with the safety car coming out, some of those drivers, such as Perez, who got kissed wheels with George Russell and Esteban Ocon and a couple of others, are coming in for tire changes, because the amount of time it takes to change the tires from beginning to end. The tire change itself is about 2.5 seconds, but it's about a 19-second endeavor. So as they leave the track and come down to pit road and get their tires, it's about 19 seconds. But at these speeds, they don't lose as much ground as if they would if the race was live. So probably a smart move for some of those teams. Maybe Ocon ran over some of the debris that was left from Tsunoda's car. So, or they may just have decided that starting on the tires that they did was not really such a good idea. But anyway, the safety car is out, and we only have a total of 17 laps for this sprint race anyway. So probably now we've eaten up 3 or 4 of those laps just in the safety car. So probably not too much is going to happen between now and the end of this, and so we'll probably end up with tomorrow's race with Leclerc in pole, Perez in second, then Russell, then Verstappen, in that order right now, and then Carlos Sainz. But you never know. The Red Bull cars perform a lot better than any other manufacturer in race conditions, so we could see we've got Red Bull in the top 4, and then we've got Ferrari and Mercedes. So you could see Red Bull pull this out because they're about 1.5 seconds faster in race conditions than the other manufacturers right now. So Yuki Tsunoda, who got himself a new front end and a new rear wheel, is coming back into the pits, and he is going to start dead last tomorrow because they are pulling his car off the track altogether. They're putting it back into the garage. So when he kissed the wall there, he must have done some damage to the tie rod ends or some piece of the front suspension, and maybe the rear suspension. I mean, to lose a tire is a pretty good kiss. So anyway, the car is drivable, but not drivable under race conditions. So he is done for the day, and we are on the last lap before the safety car will be pulled in. So we're about to go back to race conditions here in just a moment. Okay, so now we are going back to green racing as they come around over the start-stop line here at this time. The safety car is in. Now, under safety car conditions versus the virtual safety car condition, the cars are allowed to kind of bunch up to each other and get close to each other. The rule is that the second car cannot have any part of his car ahead of the car in first place. So you have Sergio Perez that is hanging on the tail of Charles Leclerc, but at this point he can't pass him, and they are off, and now he can. So it's going to be interesting. We now have Max Verstappen has taken over third place, and they're through, and everybody's through Charles and Carlos Sainz. Now we have the Aston Martins coming up in 5th and 6th position. So as you probably noted from the other podcasts this year, Aston Martin is having a really, really good year. McLaren is not having such a great year, and right now McLaren is down in the 9th and 11th position. So we have, at the moment, it is Leclerc and then Perez, Verstappen, Russell, and Sainz. So you've got one Mercedes, both Red Bulls, and both Ferraris in the top 5. As I said earlier, the Red Bulls are a much faster car in race conditions, so I think we're going to see Red Bull maybe come in and take in pole and be in the front row tomorrow to start the race. So Perez did a really nice piece of driving to get past George Russell, and Verstappen, of course, did an excellent piece of driving, because not only did Perez get past George Russell, but of course Verstappen did as well. But they pretty much settled in. Leclerc's kind of got himself a nice, maybe half, 3/4 of a second lead here. We're on lap 6 of 17, so another couple of laps, and we will be halfway through this sprint for the pole. Interesting concept that Formula One started about 3 years ago. I think the first one was at the British Grand Prix back in 2020, which was right in the middle of COVID, so maybe that had some playing. But I think really what Formula One's trying to do is trying to just change up the whole structure of Formula One to make it more exciting for the fans. Because, quite frankly, even doing a podcast like this, if all we're doing is watching the cars go around and around and around and around, and there's no real competition going on, then it makes for a pretty boring race. Not that if you're at the race can it be boring, but it does make, if you already know the outcome when the race starts, then it doesn't make for a very exciting race. So Leclerc is doing a really good job of hanging on. He's right at a little over half a second ahead of Perez, and Perez has got a 1.1 second lead on Verstappen, and Verstappen has a 1.1 second lead on George Russell. So it's holding out. It looks like I think we're going to get DRS coming up here. So I don't think that the Ferrari is going to be able to hold off the Red Bull cars once we get DRS. So let's see, we started on lap 6. So lap 8, when I say we started on lap 6, that was when the yellow car, safety car came in. And in fact, there goes Sergio Perez is passing Charles Leclerc right now. So the Ferraris and the other, not just Ferraris, all of the other teams really have no chance against these Red Bull cars once racing really starts. And so on the first chance to use DRS, then Sergio Perez went past Charles Leclerc. Now, Charles Leclerc is right behind him, and he can try and get past Perez again using DRS. But when he starts racing Leclerc, that is, when he starts racing Perez, then that gives Max Verstappen the opportunity to get up on Leclerc. So it's not going to be, in fact, Max Verstappen now is inside the DRS zone. He's at 0.7 a second. So we're on lap 8. I'm going to suggest that probably lap 10, we're going to have a 1-2 for Red Bull here. And that is probably the way that this sprint for the pole will end up. You'll have Red Bull and probably George Russell in third place, and then Carlos Sainz behind that. They just played a little replay where during the restart after the safety car left, the car of Max Verstappen got pushed out wide on the corner and almost looked like he was going to kiss the wall, but he managed to save it. So yeah, a nice piece of driving by Max Verstappen, and now he is within under half a second behind Leclerc. So he will have, I think we're on lap 9, so probably lap 10. We're going to have Red Bull in 1 and 2. If you haven't really watched the Azerbaijan course, it's one of those courses that's through the streets of Azerbaijan. So it's kind of interesting as they're going through, especially some of the car cameras give you a really nice view of the streets and then of the crowds. You know, some of them sitting in cafes and restaurants, kind of like the Monaco Grand Prix, where all of the spectators are really up there. A lot of them in Monaco and in Azerbaijan, they're sitting in their living rooms getting to watch a Formula One race. So that's pretty slick. Oscar Piastri, who started way down because he had a accident during the qualifying speeds yesterday, is now up to 10th. So actually, McLaren's not having a bad day. They're right in the middle in the field, 10th and 11th. And Piastri had just passed his teammate. In fact, the train left the station of my brain, coming up with coming up with Norris's name there briefly, but yeah, so he just passed Lando Norris, and so he is in 10th. Lando Norris is in 11th. We've got the two Haas cars after that in 12th and 13th. It's really interesting how these the teams are, right. The 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. We got Bottas and Zhou Guanyu in 14th and 15th. So kind of the oddball out here is Alex Albon in the Williams. And Williams is another one of those teams that has done really, really well this year. It's really interesting. The two teams that seem to have done really well in getting their cars ready for this year's races is Williams and of course Aston Martin. Of course, Aston Martin, Alonso's in 6th position right now, and he's about 3 to 4 seconds behind Perez. So Verstappen still has not passed Charles Leclerc, and I don't know if that's because he's satisfied with where he is, or he just there's some race strategy going on. But I had expected, we're on lap 10 now, and by this time I'd expected Verstappen to have put Charles Leclerc down into 3rd place. George Russell is hanging on nicely to 4th place. He's now 2.5 seconds behind Verstappen. So, like I said, these Red Bull cars are they're a far superior car in race conditions. When they're in qualifying, speed testing for qualifying, all the cars, because they're all allowed to use DRS during those speed tests, then they're pretty even. But once they get all the fuel on board and they get into race conditions, they lose about 3 to 4 seconds per lap once you get into race conditions, and the Red Bull cars are just really far superior to that. And we've just seen a nice move put on by who was that? Alonso. Alonso just put a really nice move on to Lewis Hamilton, and we've just had one of the Lando Norris, in fact, in the pits, and he looks like he got mixed up with Nico Hülkenberg of the Haas team. Let's see what happens here. Well, doesn't look like they touched. Hülkenberg got through, okay, but it certainly something happened with Magnussen that he ended up in the pits. And what's interesting is that it just does not look like Verstappen has any interest at all about getting past Leclerc, but he's just put in the fastest lap. So I don't know how he puts in the fastest lap when he's only a little under half a second behind Leclerc, that he didn't pass him. And maybe he's going to on this lap, but he needs to be about another car length up from where he is right now to enable DRS and get himself past Leclerc and take over that 2nd position. And Valtteri Bottas is now complaining to his crew. They all started on soft tires, of course, because being 17 laps, the soft tire is very capable of lasting 17 laps. But Bottas has just been complaining to his crew that the tires are going away on him. So that's kind of an interesting thing, as we're only 12 laps onto those tires. Soft tires should typically last anywhere from 19 to 23 laps, depending on the driver and how the car's set up and stuff like that. So to be complaining about bad tires at 12 on lap 12 is either the driver's being really tough on them, or the car setup is not good. And so we see the Haas cars now are in, let's see, 11th and 12th. So the McLaren car, Piastri, is still up at number in the 10th position, but Lando Norris is all the way back in 19th, and of course Tsunoda is in 20th because he is no longer running in the race. So another interesting thing that's going on right now is that Verstappen has dropped back a little bit. In fact, he's no longer in DRS range of Leclerc, but Leclerc has moved back to within DRS range of Sergio Perez. So I'm wondering if there's some team strategy going on here, because Perez still has just, not still, but has just retaken the fastest lap from Max Verstappen. So, in fact, Max Verstappen is now at 1.2 seconds. So now we see the AlphaTauri guys, Alfa Romeo for Valtteri Bottas. They're going to bring him in and put a new set of tires on him. But we're on lap 13 of 17, so we don't have much longer to go. But they felt it was necessary to bring him in and put tires on. But he was in the 17th position anyway. So what's going to happen to him? He's going to drop 2 more positions to 19th. So probably thinking more on the safe side there, rather than the position. But in fact, so that's interesting. Esteban Ocon, something must be going on with his car. Esteban Ocon has dropped all the way down back to 19th, behind the rest of the field, and yet he was doing quite well a few laps ago. He was up in the 11th, 12th position, right behind the McLaren cars. So we got Ocon in the Alfa Romeo all the way down there in 19th position now, and the McLaren Lando Norris in 18th. In the top, we still have the same 3 folks fighting it out there. We've got Perez, Leclerc, and Verstappen, and then followed by Russell and Sainz. Where's Lewis Hamilton? Lewis Hamilton started the day second, and he is in 7th position right now. So, like I said, these cars react very differently under race conditions than they do in the speed qualifying test positions, where they can use DRS the entire time. So while we watch, there's not a lot going on. So while we watch, why don't we thank another one of our sponsors? We want to go ahead and thank the team at Moms for Liberty. Folks, if you want to get involved with your school boards, get involved with the education of your children, then you need to get involved with Moms for Liberty, a great organization that is promoting the inclusion of parents in the education of their children, and not just in the education, but also by getting involved in school boards. So getting their members elected to school board positions, so that we can have our education folks focus on educating our kids about mathematics and English and history and all of those things that matter, versus some of the things that are being taught in the schools today. So please, Moms for Liberty's got about 183 chapters throughout the United States. So please go to momsforliberty.org. That is momsforliberty.org, and lend your support and get involved with your child or even your grandchildren's education in the school system. And so now back to racing. We're on lap 15 of 17, and so 2 laps ago, Leclerc was 0.7 of a second behind Perez. Now he is 2.3. Verstappen was about a little under half a second behind Leclerc, and now he's at 1.1. So I'm going to think that for whatever reason, Red Bull has decided that they're going to put Leclerc between Perez and Verstappen for the start of the race tomorrow. So there's got to be some race strategy going on there, because it's quite obvious that the Red Bull is a much superior car to the Ferrari. So they're just leaving him trapped there, but Max Verstappen is all of a sudden stepping on it. So maybe, just maybe, here in the last 2 or 3 laps, he is going to decide that it's going to be a Red Bull 1-2 stop. Not he has decided, of course. That would be Hannah Schmidt, the team strategist. As you remember, for 2022, she got Engineer of the Year. for her work with Max Verstappen in particular, but in Red Bull overall. And not just Red Bull, because for the other team, the AlphaTauri team, which is a minor league team, if you could have a minor league team in Formula One, but AlphaTauri is a minor league team for Red Bull. So all of these manufacturers, there's 10 teams, right, that start, but out of the 20 cars, but all of the teams are sub-teams of another team. So that's why you'll also see drivers switching positions sometimes during the season. If one of the drivers is out and they're not going to use their reserve driver, then they'll switch drivers between the lower cars. So they'll put the reserve driver, say, Red Bull would put the reserve driver in the AlphaTauri and take the AlphaTauri driver and move him up to the Red Bull car. So let's see, what is going to happen? Are we going to see Max Verstappen take out Charles Leclerc here, or is Leclerc going to hold him off? We've got 2 laps to go, so we're going to find out pretty quickly, because they get around this circuit in about 1.5 seconds, 1.5 minutes, maybe a little. Let's see what the Verstappen is now. He's closing it, but he just, I don't know. It's almost like he just he doesn't have what he needs to get right up there to get the DRS. He's right at 1 second now, and to enable DRS, you have got to be inside that 1 second mark. They've just had an amazing picture of Azerbaijan there, where this part of the track is going through the old section of town, and you could see the new section of town with all the high-rise buildings in the background. And so Verstappen now, in fact, I can see his car. He has DRS wide open, but he's coming up. He did not manage to get Leclerc that time, but now he is probably just about 1.5 car lengths behind Leclerc. So he's got to get past him here on this lap, because we are on the last lap of this sprint to the pole. So let's see if he's going to open up DRS here. He's got to. If he's going to do it, he's got to find it now. Otherwise, he's starting in 3rd position. But we're coming through into the last few turns. Yeah, folks, I think it's going to end with Perez, Leclerc. In fact, it is. Verstappen just dropped out of DRS zone, so there is no way that he's going to pull up into 2nd position, being a second back going into the last straightaway. He just does not have that speed. Unless Leclerc makes a slip up here on the last couple of turns, it is going to be Perez, Leclerc, Verstappen, and then Russell, and that is the way it is ended. So the running order for tomorrow is Sergio Perez will be on pole. Alongside him will be Charles Leclerc, and then in the 2nd row will be Max Verstappen and George Russell. In the 3rd row will be Carlos Sainz and Alonso in the Aston Martin. And right behind them will be Lewis Hamilton and Lance Stroll. So Aston Martin bringing up and really doing a really good job this year. Alex Albon is in the Williams is going to be in 9th, and Piastri in the McLaren is going to be in 10th. At the bottom of your field, you've got Bottas, Norris, and Ocon. So not a bad showing for the Haas team today. Magnussen in 10th and Hulkenberg in 14th. So, folks, until tomorrow when we'll be bringing you the race, this is Jonathan Steele with your Formula One News Hour. Hope you have a great rest of your day.